In ancient times, somewhere in the East, there was a man tormented by an unbearable itch on his back. He tried every remedy he could find, yet nothing worked. One day, he came across a street vendor shouting about a secret ancestral cure for itching. Desperate and hopeful, the man spent a considerable amount of money to buy it. Back home, his itch flared up again. In pain and urgency, he tore open the package, only to find another layer wrapped inside. He unwrapped that layer, and then another, and another, until finally at the center, he found a single piece of paper. On it were just two words: scratch it. Now imagine you are that man. What's your first reaction? First reaction: anger. I've been scammed. This is a mind far from Zen. It's the ego reacting, the self clinging tightly to its expectations. It's natural but not awakened. Second reaction: laughter, followed by a realization: I was chasing a shortcut I probably didn't deserve. This mindset is already very close to Zen or Tao. You are open, spacious, able to laugh at yourself. You're already halfway there. Third reaction: deeper laughter, not only realizing the chase was pointless, but also seeing that the self who chased it, this identity wrapped in thought, is just a mental construct. At that moment, you experience what Zen calls Satori, a flash of awakening. From there, your only task is to maintain that clarity, to practice gently, consistently. In fact, modern neuroscience shows that with sustained awareness, the brain begins to change. Your anterior cingulate cortex, your insular cortex, and your salience network, the very regions responsible for deep awareness and mindful observation, start to strengthen and grow. Over time, your brain literally rewires itself for clarity and resilience. You become someone who lives with fewer worries, greater emotional stability, and a steady sense of calm. Your creativity blossoms, focus deepens, relationships improve, life flows better, and both your body and mind stay healthy and happy. Zen calls this moment breaking the illusion of self. This story also carries another layer of meaning. The very act of seeking enlightenment too earnestly can become a trap. Chasing a secret formula for awakening is just another form of attachment, an obsession Zen teaches us to release. Each layer of the package in the story symbolizes something to let go of: craving, expectation, ego, identity, until all that's left is something simple, honest, and direct. Scratch it. This simplicity doesn't mock the search. It reveals the truth at its core. That scratch it symbolizes the essence of Zen. To see directly into your original mind, the one free of stories, free of conceptual filters, free of ego. To simply be aware without adding layers. Zen is not about achieving something grand. It's about stripping away what you're not until what's left is what's always been: your natural awareness. Zen calls this the non-practice practice. When you let go, the clarity comes naturally. So, how close are you to Zen? Maybe closer than you think. Maybe just one laugh away. Beyond the mindfulness you may already be practicing, this deeper Zen awareness is the very force that empowered visionaries like Konosuke Matsushita, Kazuo Inamori, Steve Jobs, and countless others to transform their lives and the world. And speaking of Zen's enduring power, did you hear the news? NBA superstar Victor Wembanyama just shaved his head and began a 10-day silent retreat at the Shaolin Temple in China, embracing the monastic life and pausing his travel plans. Why Shaolin? Because back in 527 CE, Bodhidharma, the 28th patriarch of Indian Buddhism, arrived at Shaolin and planted the seeds of what became Chan Zen Buddhism, a path that would go on to transform Eastern philosophy and spiritual practice. That's why Shaolin is called the ancestral home of Zen. So why would a global sports icon pause everything to dive into Zen? Because Zen still speaks to something deep, real, and timeless. It opens a door, not just to stillness, but to awakening. If you're curious about that journey, subscribe to True Koan Neo Zen and join us as we explore more stories, insights, and practices. Together, we'll make this world a more awakened, peaceful, and beautiful place. As we mentioned earlier in this video, that little Zen joke hides a deeper truth. Sometimes the harder we chase awakening, the further it slips away. In Zen, this is called the grasping mind, the tendency to cling even to the idea of enlightenment. It becomes a subtle form of attachment, a clever disguise of the ego. And it's not just spiritual seekers who fall into this trap. Now, what happens when science tries to hack the flow state? Let's explore a fascinating neurofeedback experiment. The flow state, what Zen Buddhism refers to as samadhi, can be cultivated through mindful meditation. But can it be achieved through modern technology? Can we use machines to manipulate our brainwaves and enter this state? Neuroscientists have discovered that whether it's artists, athletes, or Zen monks, their brains show similar patterns when they're in a state of flow. Reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for rational thought, and increased activity in regions linked to intuition and unconscious processes. The result is a sense of ease, effortlessness, and fluidity. From a neuroscientific perspective, one way to support the flow state is to quiet certain mental functions. Essentially, to turn down the volume of the thinking mind. With this understanding, scientists attempted to induce flow using neurofeedback. Participants were connected to electrodes and heart monitors. They learned to control their breathing while observing brainwave feedback on a screen, training themselves to consciously produce the alpha waves commonly associated with flow. But the results were disappointing. As soon as participants had the thought, "I'm in flow now," their attention fractured and the state vanished. The experiment failed because it revealed a deep paradox. Trying to grasp flow is the very thing that causes it to disappear. From a Zen perspective, the participants fell into three classic traps: attachment to the self, attachment to the final goal, known in Zen as attachment to cause and effect, and attachment to the present moment. These are precisely the forms of clinging that Zen practice teaches us to transcend. This is known as the paradox of flow. As Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the founder of flow theory, wrote in his book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, one cannot force oneself to enter flow. The very act of trying to achieve it can prevent it. The hallmark of flow is a sense of effortless action. It's so enjoyable that people will do it even at great cost, for the sheer sake of doing it. But as soon as one becomes self-aware of being in flow, the experience tends to dissolve. So the core insight from this failed experiment is aligned with Zen. The moment flow becomes a goal, it slips away. As soon as one forms the thought, "I have achieved flow," the ego reappears and the mind becomes entangled. The practitioner has not entered the Zen state of samadhi, where the mind abides nowhere and clings to nothing. Modern interpretations of Zen in the West often misrepresent the concept of the now, or the deep present. In truth, Zen warns of attachment to the present moment itself. As the Diamond Sutra says, the present mind cannot be grasped. In the neurofeedback experiment, the moment a participant tried to capture the now and said, "This is the flow," it disappeared. Because that very act of mental labeling is an attachment, an arising of self and concept. What remains is no longer the real present, but a mental construct, and that destroys the natural state of samadhi. True Zen presence does not mean fixating on a particular moment or achieving a specific state of mind. It means letting go of past regrets and future anxieties, releasing all clinging, judgment, and conceptual grasping. Then this very moment becomes a gateway to awakening. But the present moment in Zen is not a fixed point in time. It's not a feeling or a mental state. It is a state beyond time, beyond thought, a pure field of awareness with no mental constructs, no duality, and no fixation. This is precisely what the neurofeedback experiment unintentionally demonstrated. As soon as we try to define or hold on to the now, it vanishes. Zen uses the word now as a symbolic placeholder, not a literal timestamp. It's a skillful means to point beyond time-bound thinking, a linguistic tool used to express the inexpressible. In fact, one of the central teachings of Zen is that true wisdom transcends the limits of language and logic. As Master Rinzai once said, let go completely and then let go of the idea of letting go. In the film Point Break, Bodhi leaps from a cliff into a waterfall, an act of ultimate surrender to nature. In Zen meditation, the same leap happens inward, a single thought released, and the mind falls freely into the groundless, anchorless realm of non-abiding. This is flow. This is samadhi, a mind with no clinging, no concepts, no dualities, free to move like water and still like the void.